Hello, friends, and welcome to our streaming services. If you're with us on Facebook or YouTube, then subscribe to get notifications when we have new videos. If you're with us here on Zoom, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Drop a hello in the chat so that we can say hi back. Today's service is, all right, ready? Paul always has these great names for services. Ideal, real, surreal. What's the deal? Being beyond material concepts of reality with Paul Fucile. That is enticing. All right. Okay. Listen up, everybody. Seriously, I know, I talk, but this one's important because announcements today are about next week's parish meeting and picnic. So you need to know this stuff. That is May 23rd, next week at 10 a.m. So if you've been sleeping in on Sundays, don't do it next week because we need a quorum. We need you to show up. All right. We will not be having a normal Sunday service. Instead, we'll have a very short little service and some special member anniversaries with the parish meeting coming right afterward. On the agenda will be the election of new officers and approval of the budget for the coming year. In addition, the board will be asking the congregation to vote in agreement to covenant to work on adopting the Widening the Circle of Concern program. All right. After the parish meeting at 12:30, we will be having a picnic, a special 60th anniversary picnic, and welcoming everyone back live in person. We will have hot dogs, live music. Steve Leach will be there, and cake from Lady Caker. We would love to have you all, and we could also, of course, use your help set up, clean up, and cooking the food. So if you can help, email 60th@oakcliffuu.org. I am sorry to say that in the interest of safety and after much consideration, UUCOC is not prepared to have children return to its campus. We are working diligently on a new nursery, cleaning it up and getting it set up. We went over the summer and it's looking so good. The kids are going to have such a blast when we return. So we're working on the nursery, we're working on the playground, and when we are ready, the kids are going to have a fantastic time. We are also working on sort of a welcoming back the children celebration for later in this year when we have fully gotten ready. But for now, we're just not quite there yet to have children back on campus. So if you've got kiddos like me, and or if you don't feel safe gathering together in person, then you can still enjoy the parish meeting and our anniversary celebration on Zoom. So we've got all of that going for you. Whew, that's a lot, right? Okay, so here we go. We're almost done. For a list of candidates running for election and for links to next week's Zoom events, the parish meeting and the 60th celebration, check out the eBlast this week and the special spring parish notification email or visit our website. If you have any questions about these events, then email 60th@oakcliffuu.org. And please, please, please try to make it to the parish meeting live or on Zoom, because once again, we need that quorum to do anything. All right. That's about it. Remember that we do have Talkback today at 11:15. So if you've never been to Talkback, I highly recommend it. It's a chance to join together and talk about the service or whatever else. And you get a lot of interesting perspectives from everybody. So that's at 11:15. And then in addition, we have UUCOC Social Hour every Tuesday at 9 a.m. and Friday at 9 p.m. That's it. And it was enough, right? So there are no member anniversaries this week, but there are quite a few next week. So looking forward to that. And I hope that you all have a very, very happy Sunday. Bye, everybody.
Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Oak Cliff. Thank you for having the curiosity and courage to join us. We welcome you, whoever you are, whatever spiritual tradition, whatever gender, age, race, sexual orientation, or background you may bring to our community. We hope you find here comfort, challenge, community, respect, and above all, love.
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of love, compassion, and forgiveness.
Que esta luz que ahora encendemos nos inspire a usar nuestros dones y poderes para sanar y no para herir, para ayudar y no para impedir, para bendecir y no para maldecir, para servirte a ti, espíritu de amor, compasión y perdón.
Spirit of life and hope. Spirit of life and hope, we turn our hearts and minds again towards thee. Awaken us to the mysteries that humble us, the realities that orient us, the truths that judge and guide us, the beauty that informs and revives us, the love that nourishes us, the fellowship that sustains us, the creativity that heightens and deepens and reorders our living, that we may give ourselves in honesty and openness to the larger life before us. Amen.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Because we love one another, we honor each individual spiritual journey. We celebrate life's abundance and service to each other, our community, and the world. We connect with each other in love, respect, and acceptance. Thus do we covenant together.
And now in Spanish. Porque nos amamos unos al otro, oramos el viaje espiritual de cada individuo. Celebramos la abundancia de la vida en el servicio a entre sí, nuestra comunidad y el mundo. Ponemos en contacto a unos con otros en el amor, respeto y aceptación. Así que hacemos pacto.
In our community, we make time each week to share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because each person in this community has value. Each person's experience matters. We share our sorrow with one another today, knowing that sorrow comes into each person's life, knowing that together we offer comfort. At this time, we invite you to publicly post your sorrows and prayer requests to the Zoom chat or send those to our Facebook Messenger.
When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love.
We also share our joys with one another, knowing that joy comes into all of our lives, knowing that joy calls unto joy, knowing that together our voices can rise in a chorus of celebration. Today, we share the joy of this moment, this community, present and awake together, deep calling unto deep, joy calling unto joy, light calling unto light. Please share your joys publicly by post in the Zoom chat or send those to our Facebook Messenger or speak those aloud.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stems of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
We are approaching a very special day. Only one more week until our celebration of the 60th anniversary of the establishment of this amazing church, the first ever combination of Unitarian and Universalism, and we have the charter to prove it. Over the past several weeks, we have been looking back over our history, the tentative departure from First Church, the little rented house on Sang Boulevard, the purchase of 5 acres on Keast Boulevard, the breaking of ground for not one, but eventually 3 buildings, and the growth. From the original 30 charter members to nearly 80 now, we've watched the membership grow and change, evolve, struggle, shrink, and grow some more. We are a feisty group, committed to maintaining liberal religion and its precious values in Southwest Dallas, our beloved Oak Cliff. In many ways, the coming celebration resembles Charter Day. We are starting over from the pandemic, not inventing ourselves, but rather reinventing ourselves. We are looking to new directions, priorities, and purpose. We are embracing a changing geography, changing demographics, and changing politics. Symbolically, perhaps, we are also in the process of renovating the exterior of the Faith Building. If you have not seen the plans, please come by. If it is approved at the annual parish meeting next Sunday, we will also be refurbishing our infrastructure in the form of revised bylaws, codified policies and procedures, and seeking the help of professional UUA consultants to better conduct the business, mechanics, and details of our church affairs as we grow over the next 60 years. Please plan to come and help us celebrate and be part of UUCOC as we widen our circle of concern and grow together. See you next week.
Ideal, real, surreal. What's the deal? Dreaming beyond material concepts of reality. It's kind of heavy, right? So I've been exploring indigenous cultures as of lately. In particular, their religious and or spiritual beliefs. Indigenous North Americans, South Americans, indigenous cultures of Africa and Australia, and all around the world. And I've noticed undoubtedly vast differences from what we call westernized religion and spirituality for at least today's time. I'll get into what today's time means a little bit later. Now, before I go on, let me warn you of these thoughts. Some of these thoughts are still processing and in the analysis phase for me, so forgive me if the thought isn't succinct. Please ask for clarity and talk back, and I'll do my best not to ramble and or work out a circular argument with you. Returning to the spirituality of indigenous people. Many of these forms of spirituality share fairly easy, recognizable similarities. A deep connection with the earth, where the earth is what I would call the teacher of the present and of the past. In other words, intrinsic to the earth was or is wisdom of the present moment, how to live in the now, and also intrinsic to the future of the past is the earth, is the understanding of the earth. Most indigenous cultures are rooted in oral traditions of their elders passing down stories from generation to generation. These oral tradition stories are retellings of wisdom from the particular present moment from the past where the earth has revealed the wisdom. Eric Hansen of the University of Columbia puts it in this way: the landscape plays a role of connecting oral traditions to the current experience. He gives this example of a North American indigenous culture where there's a stone formation, and the story is that the particular people passed through this area and they misbehaved, and they were turned to stone. Now, whenever anybody in the present moment passes that particular stone formation, they're retold the story of the misbehavior and thus given the lesson that misbehavior leads to poor outcomes. And that's how the story is then passed along from generation to generation. Now, alternatively, anyone with exceptional character is memorialized as a animal formation. They're given some sort of totem dedication or something like that. Now, the sky, I said the earth first. Now, the connection with the sky is the teacher of the future. This is both in a mythical sense and in a realistic sense. At a very basic realistic level, let's talk about food. The seasons determined by what could only be described as the sky. Informed them was a particular hunting season. Once agricultural came into play, it lets you know when to reap and when to sow. Over the course of history, these patterns of seasons and the like were attached to or attributed to a particular kind of energy. And in many cases, the person that best espoused that energy, this is to an extent the invention of what a myth is. So the person who espoused that energy was then connected to that tradition, that season, that monument, that animal. And that's the creation of myth. The Mayans, a Central American indigenous culture, goes back as far as 1800 before Common Era, or BCE. It is one of the first well-known indigenous cultures of Central America, and it's one of the first to adopt an agricultural society. Shak, the Mayan deity of rain and thunder, an axe, which he used to strike the clouds, and that was connected with thunder and what made it rain. So when it was time for rain to come to feed the crops, they prayed to Shak. And Shak was one of the higher deities that had more worship and praise because they relied upon that god for food. Was Shak a real person, though? We don't know. And while I'd love to draw a line of lineage and evidence for all of my realists listening to help calm their anxiety, I can't. Truth be told, it's not really important, but it's the opposite that's important. Paul, are you saying the truth isn't important? Because that's kind of sounding like heresy and a little bit crazy. Kind of I am. And that's my point. Wait, what? My last few messages, I've talked about zooming out to look at the big picture, being of service to our community, the freedom of wondering. But what does any of that say about truth, of reality? Is any of it tangible? Well, yes, but not really. There's no science behind it. Yes, lived experience, but not any one thing I can point to and say that's a universal truth with a capital T. It isn't gospel, but is it? In that sense, it brings greater clarity and meaning to our lives. And perhaps most importantly, it gives us greater control over our lives and our reality so that we can better express ourselves and our experiences. Some of us, anyways. Speaking of gospel and truth, something magical happened and also very deceptive happened roughly the 4th, 5th century AD. It was it really was the culmination of culture and of progress for much of humanity, and I mean very specifically to use that word progress. The first complete codex of the Christian Bible was edited and compiled as one document for the birthing Christian tradition. Why was that magical and progressive? It represented the unification of much of Western Europe, unification of both people and belief across a multitude of borders. You might even say it was the start of globalization. But we have to be careful not to look at this anachronistically. 4 centuries or less earlier in this area, it was still largely feudal and tribal communities, which is not to say that in the 4th and 5th century there weren't still feudal and tribal communities. There were. And probably more than you would imagine. But here we are on the beginning of progress, of globalization type of progress. So to have an organization that reached across borders that was not a dominating government force and that typified spreading peace at that particular point in time, that was real progress. It's kind of weird, but it was. And there's some gray area in that, because Christianity was a state-sanctioned religion. That's what gave it its force, was it was state-sanctioned, and it spread with the Romans, but it also spread without the Romans. So on to the magic. The magic. Magic comes with the Gospel of John. In the very first chapter, in the very first sentence, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In Greek, the word, literally, word, is logos. The logos is the a priori of all words, or comes before all words linguistically. It represents the beginning of language. So let's do a little translation here of our first chapter of John. In the beginning, logos. The logos was with the divine. The logos was divine. Brilliant and magical. But inherent to magic is the art of deception. So maybe it doesn't make sense at this point why it's magic, but it is magic, and I'm going to show you, because the magic's all in the deception, just like any good magic trick. The real brilliance on behalf of the church fathers was that they had not only created a monopoly on the divine God, they had rooted that monopoly in the sole feature unique to the human species, the ability for high level of communication. It's brilliant. In other words, to speak is to talk about God. The logos, the a priori, comes before all. But it's also deceptive, and it's far more deceptive than I think the church fathers could have ever imagined. Now, you could say that's giving grace or calling incompetence. You decide. Now, at this point, I'm really tempted to go into a critique about how present modern day colonialism, racism, sexism, ableism, and so on are so firmly situated in Christianity. But there really is a much more vital lesson here. And that's the definition of reality. With the capital R. I can't do R's with my hands, sorry. So we have a monopoly on the divine, and we have a monopoly on language, which means that anything that comes out of those two creates a material reality. Material reality. Material meaning it is what we perceived. My hand, this pen. This pen is material reality. Whether or not I define this pen as good, bad, or anything in between is all dictated by how we perceive this reality, how material reality is created. And in the creating of the divine in the Logos, the reality is cemented, material reality is cemented in the divine and all the things that the divine means. I'm going to try to get into this better. So the Christian Bible is bridging borders in a multitude of locations across Western Europe. This is creating a unifying narrative that gives people a collective identity. And this unification, collective identity, created material reality. Communities across borders now shared stories with similar pictures that in time would be the same. This was progress. We would even say that's progress now. It's real progressive. And it was white. So now communities like the Nabateans in Western Saudi Arabia that were once matriarchal, that worship Alizua, goddess of fertility and rain, was replaced with an Abrahamic god, a patriarch that cast judgment in effort to provide salvation. Other pagans, especially in Rome and in Athens, once the martyring of Christians had ended, were then murdered for not being Christian if they did not assimilate to Christianity. Do you see how material reality is kind of flourishing out of this narrative? This pattern is continued well into today. The dominant force controls the narrative, in this case, the Christian church, and this control was on a meta scale. It isn't simply a news cycle or a marketing campaign, nor is it a conspiracy theory of sorts. This is a real manufacturing of how we understand reality. This is a Western identity that God is the only God. And everything like this image of God is good and all else is bad, hellishly bad. Maybe your narratives do not tell it to those extremes, but chances are for all of us in Western society, it falls somewhere on that spectrum of good and bad, dualistic. It's really hard to escape dualism once you've been entrenched upon it. So there's no such thing in modern Western culture of two spirit beings. You are either one thing or you're the other. A duality in opposition, or you are simply, you can't be a duality in opposition. You're either one thing or the other. And if you try to be both things, well, then you're just bad. That's not, that you can't be that. The meta narrative is that at the core of society that governs our material reality, it is so entrenched in our society that it governs the way that we perceive all things external to us and internal to ourselves, unfortunately. Should one or a community or many not assimilate to this collective identity, this unified narrative, that is now a neurotypical reality with the capital R, which is to say, if you don't think a certain way like everybody else, then we're what? We're crazy, right? Then if you don't think a certain way, if you don't act a certain way according to the created reality of what the way things should be, then your collateral damage. Either you assimilate or you see your demise. One way or the other, the existence of anything outside of that new material reality, that new narrative, or in this case, a now 2,000-year-old narrative, that existence, we just pretend like it never existed. And yet, for the first time in all known history, a shift is occurring. And it's on a global scale that I can say, that I can look back and see these things and say these things is indicative of that shift. And I'm going to get into why we can see that shift happening more. Cultures and long forgotten communities, existences that have long been denied or co-opted for zealous forms of gaslighting like Thanksgiving, these disgusting and pervasive acts of cultural appropriation are coming to light. And that's the first time in modern history. And those who were once collateral damage are no longer playing into the collective identity charades of a manufactured material reality. The Sioux, the Cherokee, and the Iroquois, they are all reclaiming their identity, their faith, their perception of Earth as mother, the sky is a great foreteller of things to come. Yes, for many of us, we're going back to our roots, reclaiming our heritage of the Viking pagans, the rural agriculturalists in northern, southern, and even Eastern Europe. We are Celts, we are Scots, we're Sicilians, just to name a few. But if you're Black, well, chances are that's all you are. There's no tracing your family tree beyond the slave ship that you came in to this stolen nation on. There's no way of knowing if our Black sisters and brothers were part of the Maasai, a 3,000-year-old tribe from Kenya. They cannot tell you if they hail from the Sandwe, an 87,000-year-old tribe from Tanzania, or the Bushmen, a 140,000-year-old tribe from Botswana and Namibia, among other places in South Africa. The white settlers of this nation rewrote all of their histories, their lifelong histories, their family lineages into slavehood. This is how their Blackness was included in the American collective identity of the material reality as an object, a commodity. This is racism. And that's why racism is still pervasive today. Now I know here at UUCOC, I am among like-minded people and can say with confidence that this injustice, this atrocity, will no longer dictate our material reality or otherwise at UUCOC. Nearly every one of our UU principles is a grounding force behind this statement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. Most poignant for me is principle 2. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Elizabeth Gage writes in the 7 Principles in Word and Worship, this, principle 2, points to something beyond the inherent worth and dignity of the first principle. And I would argue even beyond the respect of the interdependent web of all existence of the seventh principle. What exactly does it point to? Accountability. See, it's easy to pump our fist and hands that Black Lives Matter. Doing the work, living out Black Lives Matter, holding ourselves accountable, and literally enacting justice, equity, and compassion in all human relations. That's difficult. It's just plain hard work. It's emotional, and the emotional is so physically taxing that the doing of principle 2 can be gut-wrenching. But why? That nobody wants to do that, but why? But it's easy. And this part is so important. Why is it gut-wrenching? Because so much of our material reality is manufactured to perpetuate racism. If you are white, your mere existence perpetuates it in the color of your skin, as it connotes privilege to anyone who looks upon you. Your name is always on the list if you're white. So in living out the identity of a Western white person, we've taken on the habits of speech, behavior, and nonverbal behavior unconsciously. It is how we are taught to be in this world by watching those who came before us. Do you get what I'm saying here? So I've gone on and on about this manufactured material reality, and in the perpetuation of that manufactured material reality, behaviors, speech cues, nonverbal behavior have all created ways for us to perpetuate racism unconsciously. So then adhering to the second principle does not allow for the luxury of privilege, because now we have to answer all of those microaggressions that we use that we don't even know we're using, for all of those macroaggressions that we think is okay because either the people we're with expect us to behave that way, or maybe that's an old belief that we just haven't let go of. Answering to all of those little things that we do, and they're in things that you just don't even think about. Principle 2 doesn't allow for the luxury of that privilege. And it demands that we have that accountability in every term. Now, we all have to commit to doing that individually, but your UUCOC Board of Trustees has made the commitment of our church to that accountability. And that accountability comes in the form of a UUA program titled Widening the Circle of Concern. Now, some of you, I hope, if you're not in it now, that you get it in the future. You're a part of the Widening the Circle of Concern class that goes a little bit beyond white fragility, in that it gives us the tools to address those nonverbal behavior, the microaggressions, the macroaggressions, and it gives us a platform to handle them and to heal from them. Because when you recognize them, it can be traumatic. And so it is a place both for accountability and aftercare. So I hope you'll commit to going to one of the classes and participating. But as I was saying, the UUCOC Board of Trustees has committed our church to living out what we see in widening of the circle of concern, and not just in having a class once a week, but also in our board meetings and answering to places where we see latent privilege happening or blatant privilege happening, and addressing that with measures of accountability, and so that we have a sustainability for the long term as a UU church. Accountability, everybody thinks it's kind of a hairy word, but when I think of accountability, I have a saying, I am so that you too may be. It's through my accountability of myself that others are allowed to freely be. And so as you go into this week, you remember that I am, and say it for yourselves, I am so that you too may be. And if you being you prohibits somebody else from them being their full self, then maybe you're not being all of who you can be. And I hope you'll take that into this week and into your time at UUCOC and help with our measures of accountability, and so that all persons can have the full flourishing of their own potential. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive. And we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us, and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild. We dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of this child, and we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a time to be together. And with the grace of age, we share the wonder of youth. And we believe that growing is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a joy being together, and in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
This house is for the ingathering of nature and human nature. It is a house of friendships, a haven in trouble, an open room for the encouragement of our struggle. It is a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person. It offers a platform for the free voice, for declaring, both in times of security and danger, the full and undivided conflict of opinion. It is a house of truth-seeking, where scientists can encourage devotion to their quest, where mystics can abide in a community of searchers. It is a house of art, adorning its celebrations with melodies and handiworks. It is a house of prophecy, outrunning times past and times present in visions of growth and progress. This house is a cradle for our dreams, the workshop of our common endeavor. To make an offering or fulfill your pledge, please go to oakcliffuu.org/donate and follow the links.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy. Así compartimos y vivimos hoy. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy. Así compartimos y vivimos hoy.
Remembering that the universe is larger, by Marjorie Newland Leaming. Remembering that the universe is so much larger than our ability to comprehend. Let us go forth from this time, together with the resolve to stop trying to reduce the incomprehensible to our own petty expectations, so that wonder, that sense of what is sacred, can find space in our minds and illuminate our lives. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And now in Spanish. Extinguimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevaremos en el corazón hasta que estemos juntos otra vez.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, oh, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, oh, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, oh, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine, oh, building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine, let it